McCloskey, part of the YSI Sculpture Network, and we're here at my home stroke studio stroke place their own place of happening in Sheffield. Because Ella happened at about the time that we started A Place of Their Own, and we were trying to figure out, through just doing stuff, is there any radical potential of the kind of heteronormative presenting family? And it became this kind of thing that we were, how do we do this? How do we continue our art, spatial and activist work while looking after young kids in the home? And that would always happen, all those different aspects of A Place of Their Own. We'd create things in the home and do performances. So these were the kind of things of A Place of Their Own we were doing. It was always about paying attention to what was happening around us, what was happening to our bodies, how this linked into these wider global questions, whether this one was about consumerism, capitalism, climate change, or with Ella, which was about the relationship that we had to this specific border in Ireland, but also how that linked to kind of the planetary question of nation-state borders and the kind of tyranny of nation-state borders. And it was always about bodies, you know, the knowledge that we hold on our bodies and how that's passed down, and the kind of collective knowledge or collective traumas. Really fundamental, and this is why it was this part of the exhibition, why I wanted this photo book that we've just pulled together, which is really lovely to do. It's almost like a family album. That we went back, so the early iterations of Ella were on the border with the children at different ages, interacting with the border. Like this physicist, Karen Barrage, so she's a quantum physicist, and she talks about, instead of interaction, there's an interaction between the material and the discursive, and that was really helpful for us to think about what we were trying to do in A Place of Their Own with our kind of human bodies, these materials and the non-human, the politics and all the other things that were happening. So we kind of took this idea of interaction on the border with the kids to, after the first visits, of kind of tracing and visualising the now mostly invisible borderline, but going back with different materials to think about how could we imagine this invisible borderline differently. And it already lends itself to a different imaginary because the infrastructure of the border is not there, but it's literally on a map. So when you're there, you can cross over and say, this is the line, this is the imagined line of the border. But if you imagine that's not there, what else could it be? You know, does the air feel different? Is the bird song different? Does your accent change? All these kind of things. But then also, what if you imagine something completely fictional? So one of the kids, who was about 6 at the time, it's just really simply, we had these tubes of cardboard, we've got these nice pictures of her just sitting down, wrapping these up with different coloured elastic bands, and she just kind of said, yeah, this is a tower to the workers. I don't really know what she meant by that, but she was obviously picked up with something with, like, we were probably talking about. We're like, oh, that's cool, that works. So you were kind of thinking about, you know, this other way of thinking what this space could be. And then Oshin, our then 7-year-old, he cut out this big piece of black paper and put it on the ground and said, what, this could be a portal to another place. And I was like, okay, that's great, this is kind of... And then, you know, the eldest, who was a young teen, he made this kind of, drew these different species, and it was interesting because like the younger ones in some ways took to it better than the older one. And the whole thing about Place of Their Own is that at what point does your imagination become kind of taken over by the imaginations that we're all kind of constantly trying to fight against? Like I said before, you know, the kind of carbon or the capitalist or the border imaginaries that you can't imagine how to live otherwise, you know. And I think that's working with the kids has really helped with that they are able to tap into this idea of an imaginary in a way sometimes that it's more difficult for older humans to do. It was always about experimenting, but always about kind of testing out this idea and thinking about what if you completely fictionalised, how then that could create the conditions to have a different conversation about borders through the interaction, whether it's with the film or one of the papers or when we talk about it, or now in the upcoming exhibition, just always about creating a different kind of border encounter.